our session this week for Datafam Career Pathmakers. We're switching up the format a little bit this week. We have a guest with us. I don't want to butcher the name. Ojo, is it Ojoswi?
That's right. Yeah. I go by Ojo. Thank you.
Okay. Ojoswi Basu, he's here with us today to kind of share his success story around transitioning into the job, into the data analytics space, and kind of just share his insights and advice. So we'll open it up with a brief introduction. I'll hand it over to him to kind of for some opening remarks, and then we'll dive into some questions, and then we'll have a little bit of Q&A at the end. So for those of you who have questions as we go along, please enter them into the Q&A box, and when we get to the end of the interview, we'll go ahead and go through those. So a little introduction about Ojo. He is based out of Toronto, Canada. He has over 20 years of consulting experience. His superpower and true calling is Tableau. I can definitely appreciate that. Some of his highlights in the Datafam: he co-led the Tableau Toronto user group from 2018 to 2022. He kickstarted the retail and consumer goods tug in Q4 of last year, I believe, and he's also a mentor in the Data Visualization Society. So, Ojo, thank you for joining us, and I'll go ahead and hand it over to you for some opening remarks.
Thank you, Scott, for inviting me. Kind words. We are yet to kickstart the retail tug that's happening this year.
Okay.
Q4. It's a brand new shiny tug that's happening, and that's my plug here. Don't know about whether this is a success story, but it's albeit a story, and I'm practicing to be a better storyteller. So I took this up when Scott mentioned. I couldn't hold my excitement in me, and here I am trying to share my story with you. And I'm hoping that this serves as an inspiration for all those folks who have made time. Victor, Candy, Scott, thank you for making time today afternoon, and to everyone in the Datafam who is listening now and would be listening down the road. I hope this serves as an inspiration. I'm going to share my screen, and I couldn't stop myself from doing this in Tableau. This is my journey, and before I get into that, let me share a little bit about myself. As Scott mentioned, I got sucked up into the Tableau ecosystem, drank from the Kool-Aid in 2012. And it took me 12 years for Tableau to find me as their ambassador, and I'm grateful for that. It's all thanks to your support, the Datafam, for whom I try to create content and I publish it. I started off my YouTube channel recently. It has how-to videos, so do take a look. And I'm so excited that I got a chance to also co-lead the brand new retail and consumer goods user group, Tableau user group, coming up shortly in Q4. Now, here's the part that's most interesting. I would want to start from where I finished my engineering back in India. For the first couple of years, I was still figuring out what to do, and I just grabbed every chance to learn. I certified myself, believe it or not, in Java J2E. I used to be writing tons and tons and lines of code in programming languages, and my life was riddled between null pointer exceptions and what have you. It was completely offshore with hardly any interaction with my clients. Most of my clients were either in Europe or in US. That changed when they first gave me an on-site opportunity. That's a big deal for an engineer who moved into software in India, to get a chance to interact with the clients, to understand their requirements, and look at the world of software development from the other side, per se. That happened in 2007. And in a couple of years, my leaders figured out that I had above average communication skills. of at least what an Indian would have. And they decided to give me a chance to lead a project, be more client facing. And that's when I started being more customer facing. That's around 2007, 2008 onwards. And soon after, I realized that Java J2E is something that is not my true calling. It became all about data because I learned programming, so I had that analytical bent of mind to use my analytical skills in learning about SQL, data structure, and data governance, the whole data umbrella. Between 2009 to 2010, it was all about transitioning from being technical to more of developing my soft skills, translating requirements to team and offshore grooming, and being more analytical, using analytics, data analytics in my day-to-day life. And that was 2010, 2011. And in 2012, Tableau happened to me. It was an instant, like before Tableau, 2012, I was all Hyperion, MicroStrategy, OBIE, Crystal Reports, what have you. And then in 2012, when I first got a chance to play around with Tableau, it was because the offshore in one of the major retail, I can call out the names, no one's going to ding me for that. Target was in Canada and they wanted to do better. So that's when, and Target was a Tableau shop in US. They had their development centers in India. And my job was to translate the requirements and get it done with resources and experts in India. But the time difference and the pace at which things were moving required me to be much more hands-on. And I grabbed it with both hands because Tableau was an extension of the artist that I always wanted to be, of creating something beautiful as well as impactful. So 2012, Tableau, never looked back. I probably spent hours self-learning it, looked at videos from Andy Kriebel, read up some blogs, Steve Wexler's blogs, I believe, yes. And then more practice, learning by doing, putting my work out there with the leadership, translating requirements. And that continued since 2012, even till date. Nothing much has changed except for my understanding of the tool, the best practices, a lot of reading, inspiration from the leaders and the creators out there. I certified myself in January of 2015, and since then, as I worked as a contractor, soon after 2014, I transitioned from being a full-time employee to being an individual consultant. And because I was a contractor, every 6 months, 9 months, or a year, I had to move. My projects would sunset, or my team would require my help in another area. So what am I good at? I'm good at standing up center of excellences. I'm good at sharing the Tableau blueprint, speaking about the best practices, data best practice, starting up a community wherever I go. I met some of the best people in this industry and trade. Some of them are good friends now while being a Datafam. So that's one of the biggest takeaways for me. It hasn't been always a rosy picture. It hasn't been all success and sunshine. I've had my lows. 2023 was the time I had to step away from co-leading a Toronto user group because of bereavement issue. I was in a bad place emotionally. I had health issues. I took a step back, but 2024 was all about jumping back on. I was looking for work and I found this data careers group, and it's amazing that I'm getting to share my story with you this time around. And this is one of the groups I want the best for. they're doing such a fabulous job helping everyone find the better part in them. And I hope I'm doing justice to that. Let me take a pause here. How am I doing?
Doing great. Appreciate the kind words. Thank you very much. It's heartwarming to kind of hear your journey and the story that you went through, to just say, hey, it is possible to be from an entirely different kind of field and be able to maybe not have a smooth transition into the field, but with a little patience and time, it can be accomplished. So appreciate you kind of sharing your story with us. So I guess with that, we'll dive into some of the questions
Absolutely.
to throw out there. And then the first question I have for you is, I guess, what motivated you to transition into the data analytics field, if you want to expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, this was back in 2009. I was more client facing. I realized that data was something that was breaking. Like it was at the point, think about AI now, Y2K then, and probably computers prior to that. In the 1980s, when I was born, everybody wanted to be a computer engineer. Part of the reason why my parents really inspired me to take engineering. So when I figured that programming could be outsourced uh, to other countries, and I enjoy understanding the business aspect of it, the only field that made sense to me, was relevant to me, was data.
Okay. All right. What skills do you find most essential in your current role?
I would like greener when I was younger in this field, I would think that knowing the technicalities and being technically strong was important. But after a time when you understood the 80% of the technical side, I realized that the bigger value was in communication, was in listening to understand rather than anything else.
Okay. And sorry here. Did you take any like online courses, boot camps, or participate in any workshops? And if so, which ones did you take, and I guess which ones did you like the most?
Yes. I initial Tableau learning was mostly self-learning, but later on down the road, I believe there were several certifications. SQL, Tableau has its own learning modules. I took a few of them. I later on Python came into picture, so I did that. I did a Power BI certification to see how the world looks from the other side. So these are good skills to have. SQL for sure, Python for sure, and then of course Tab.
Okay. And now we'll transition kind of to the job search piece of it. And excuse me. How did you go about searching for jobs in the data analytics field?
Here on my screen, this is my best friend, LinkedIn. And believe me or not, my current, I did find work. It was supposed to be a year long, but it's gotten short ended. So this is going to be my tool of choice, LinkedIn, and that's the setting I prefer. There is controversy. If you do choose all LinkedIn members, then it sounds like it's off-putting and comes across as desperate. I don't believe it, but usually that recruiting has been working pretty good for me, provided your LinkedIn has looks very similar to your resume, that you have put good amount of work in creating it in a way that the algorithm likes it. And for sure, the biggest champion of all these is if I'm looking for a Tableau job, which I am mostly, have a Tableau public that has that showcases your skills, your capabilities. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think it does, and that's something we I know here at Pathmakers, definitely a good piece of advice to try to get across, that probably the most important aspect of job hunting and searching is showcasing your skills, and the best way to do that is having some type of portfolio, whether that's in Tableau Public or even if it's a job you're applying to where you're not using Tableau, like Power BI or something like that. Just have a website somewhere or a mechanism to where you can share your portfolio to kind of showcase your skill sets. And that becomes important because in my opinion, and I guess I'll ask this question of you as well. In my opinion, I feel for people who are just transitioning into the field for the first time, there is really truly no entry level positions per se anymore, because even the most junior level positions I've seen out there, they say they require like 1 to 2 years experience. Well, how are you supposed to get that experience without getting into a job for the first time? And the best way I think to do that is just do things like Makeover Mondays, Workout Wednesdays, to showcase those skill sets, and also be able to, in your resume, be able to kind of showcase what projects you worked on and the impact of those. So what are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. Like, I know I'm here um, trying to be like a be all know all kind of a person, but no, there is Scott here, there's Victor, there's Candy. They have seen a lot of volume go through, and trust me, they know much better. So if you are here, great. If you have missed it, join. And if you have friends who are looking, have them join this tug. It's absolutely critical, and I agree with Scott when he mentions that letting your work speak for you. It's crucial. Makeover Monday is a great starting point. Back to his basics. Even the newer challenges that Tableau is, the Tableau Data Plus TV, the Data Plus movies, a few other Tableau initiatives, community projects. These are amazing. And for those who are starting off, I think the youngsters who are graduating from university are much more data aware. These days, it is a trend to learn data while you are in university. I know a few of them who are graduating and came for internship at the bank I was working for, whom I got a chance to mentor as well. They were so focused and they knew exactly what they were going to do. I feel this is a wind of change, and I'm liking it.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. I've had a few mentees myself to where they were graduate students and they were in either data visualization programs or business intelligence programs. And I think that's a trend that has popped up across the country for various universities over the last 5 years or so, to where that's becoming a key aspect there, because our field is a continually growing field. I know people are concerned with layoffs and everything that are going on today. But our field is constantly growing, and it's very competitive, specifically because of people who went through periods like the Great Depression, or not the Great Depression, but the Great Termination and the Great Recession after COVID. And so though you have those individuals trying to come back into the market now, as well as college graduates who are trying to get in there. So that makes it very highly competitive. So the more you can do to stand out through your portfolio, through projects and things you put in your resume, the better chances you have. All right. Next question for you, sir. What challenges did you face during the job application process?
Yeah, great segue into what Scott you were mentioning. There is a constant supply, and I speak for Canada, of fresh talent through immigration here in Canada, and they will take any dollar. Like, this is their first job in Canada, so they'll probably take And as a consultant, I work, my hours are billable. So it's important that, and that's probably the biggest challenge for me, that I have to justify you, and I have to pitch myself against someone who's starting off in Canada with, if not similar, but fairly strong experience from their country of origin. And they're probably coming with 6, 7, 8 years of tech background, consulting background, and they will take any dollar. That's one of the personal challenges I have faced, and I think it's relevant for those who are competing. And then the second biggest challenge is, like you mentioned, how do you differentiate yourself? Because as an individual contributor, as a consultant, I try to be hands-on, and and the world is still learning that individual consultants could also assume leadership roles and be like a specialist in their space. So that's a mind shift that I hope was happening before, and it's not happened as fast as I would have loved it to happen. The recruitment team, and I don't want to be offensive to anyone, but be politically correct. It's something that I'd like to see.
Did you leverage any networking opportunities or professional connections to find your current role?
Yes and no. So I haven't gone directly asking for work unless I was very comfortable or close to them. And with the LinkedIn setting that I just showed before, I think I've been doing pretty okay with headhunters reaching out to me for contract roles. But of course, if you have connections and you have worked with them, like a few of my contractor friends took up work where those were advertised to be contract converting to full-time. Once you set up the rapport with your current colleagues at work, it definitely helps.
All right. What does a typical day look like in your current role?
I'm crazy like this. So usually 60 to 70% of it, I prefer to be Tableau hands-on. Although I have been in roles where 50% was leadership meetings, but those roles are a few and far away. But mostly it requires me to look at data, understand requirement, translate requirements, work with the DBAs, the data stewards and the data owners, reshape, restructure the data, explore. It's mostly a very Tableau heavy, and I like it like so. But if you're coming from a world which is not Tableau intense, your day probably, and depending on which role you're looking for, is going to be pretty much similar.
Yeah. And I'll just add to that a little bit, just because for everybody who doesn't know, I have around 20 years experience doing data visualization, but here as of late, my role is kind of flipped on the flip side of that. So for those who are interested, like how do you progress kind of in this role? For a great majority of my career personally, I was very like Ojo, in the weeds, hands-on, doing development and learning the skills needed to kind of be that full, what I would call application developer. So everything from going out, gathering requirements, to creating the designs, to building, to coordinate testing, and all that. Basically a end-to-end data engineer per se, because that's what a lot of roles are looking for right now, just from the aspect of if they can pay one person to do, and this is just the reality of kind of our current landscape right now. If they can pay one person to do the full scope of things, as opposed to, let's say they want to pay somebody to do front end and then pay a second person to do kind of the back end data development, I think most companies are going to lean towards paying one person as opposed to two. So from a kind of standpoint, if you can learn the skills needed to do that, that's also another opportunity that will set you up for success. But kind of where my role is shifted now, On the flip side of that is another progression in this role is if you want to kind of be less tactical and more strategic as you go along. And I'll give the example in the role I am now. I just started my new role this past May, and I was specifically brought in because of my expertise and to help uplift our entire dashboard environment, which is 60 plus dashboards and 700 or so users. So I've been tasked with reconning the entire environment, jotting down my thoughts, putting time estimates around things, and just creating a roadmap and milestoning around the uplift of that environment, because this is going to be a multi-year project to do that. So that is another path for those of you out there. If you're thinking of maybe leadership in the future or things like that as part of this role, that is a path you can go as well. You do kind of all the heavy work up front where you're in the weeds doing the development, and having all that experience can then help you as you're transitioning onto the strategic side of things as well. So that's definitely another avenue you could go as well.
Scott, there's a couple of questions in the chat. I don't know if you want to go to those or if you want to continue for a little bit with your...
No, yeah, we can kind of dive into some of those questions first here. So
okay, do you want me to read them out? And then
yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so in the question and answer, Max asks, Joe, my personal experience these days showed me that it's very difficult to get a free screening interview. Did you encounter that, and did you manage to overcome that challenge?
This is a great question. Yes, I've made several, like I speak from experience, and every year or so I have to look for work. So it has happened that I've prepared the best resume possible, tweaked it to the requirement, and then I send it off to the hiring manager to never hear from them ever again. It has also happened that they took the best possible. I sat through a technical round, cleared it to the next round, and then radio silence, crickets, nothing. So yeah, I've learned to normalize it. As for the pre-screening, it has happened that I've heard good things, that it's moving up and then gone. Does that answer the question?
Yeah. The other questions in the chat, Scott, if you want to grab that, or do you want me to?
No, okay. I've got it right here. This question is from Jonathan. He asks, what are good steps that someone who has worked with different skills like Tableau, Excel, be able to get a job in the data analytics field?
Yeah, you have high chances. Excel's still the winner. Everybody wants a piece of Excel, although we as Tableau lovers would want not to build a report that looks like Excel, but yes, you'd be doing just fine. If you just slap on a Python certificate on top of that, you're good as gold.
Yeah, I would say another thing with that as well, if you could throw, if you have any kind of data prep or data wrangling skills in there as well. So using tools like Alteryx or Tableau Prep, things like that, that goes into the data engineering piece I talked about before. A lot of companies are looking for roles, and in the roles, it may not be specifically outlined in those roles, but I think kind of one of the hidden aspects of some of these is they're looking for people who can do like data engineering pieces as well. So if you have opportunities to kind of take some training on those tools, or even go out and just download the tools. I know you can download Tableau Prep for free. You can, I believe, download Alteryx as well, and just play around with those tools and learn those. That will help you as well. We have another. No, we don't have any other questions in the chat. So the next question I have for you then is, what were the biggest challenges you faced during your transition?
I have to step back several years. So I've been doing data for a long time. So let me see. when I was transitioning into data and Tableau was selling like hotcake. Like if you had a couple of viz in Tableau Public, I don't know, was Tableau Public even there? But if you could do a demo, a show and tell, and build a couple of bar charts, you were good. So for me, the transition wasn't hard, but learning the basic concepts, that was key. Like I had to know SQL, I had to know the basic data structure, how to structure your data, how to play with it, how to write a custom query, and prepare the data in a way that Tableau, as a columnar aggregator, would make the most of it. I think those are key concepts, because drag and drop, low code, no code, the Tableau we are headed towards, that would require the basic understanding of concept, the best practices, because you have AI to build most of it right now. So I would just say that learning the core concepts, the best practices, is going to be your best friend. Any thoughts? Like, I'm not just the expert here. We have Candy, we have Victor, Scott. So if you feel I've under-delivered an answer, by all means, add to it.
No, no. I think everybody's challenges are different, and unique to their transition. I know some of the challenges I faced as I was going through my career is two things. One, and these are two pieces of advice I give to all my mentees as well, is one, don't be afraid to say no. As you're going through, and I know everybody who goes through early on, they want to make this huge impression and build their reputation and build their brand. So you're always wanting to say yes to everything, but you have to be careful of that, because sometimes saying yes can get you into trouble, especially when you run into situations to where you've promised something and you're not able to deliver it then. And that can negatively impact not only you, but potentially the team you're on as well. So kind of not being afraid to say no, but if you do have to say no, either one, give an alternative to, like, say, yeah, we can't do this, but we can maybe meet you halfway. We can do something halfway, or being able to provide a reason why it just technically can't be done. So you'll end up getting a lot of credibility and building your brand reputation with that. And then number two is, and sadly I did not learn this till about halfway through my career, is do not get emotionally invested in the work that you do. Now, you can have pride and take pride in what you do, but don't get to the point to where and I had a situation like this to where I had worked on a dashboard for a period of 6 months, and it had got pushed to production, and I noticed after about a month or so it hadn't been used. So I had reached out to the business owner at the time, and they had said, "Oh yeah, well we just," and I knew at the time when I was building this that it was a stopgap for functionality that was going to be built into a software that was coming down the road in in the next 6 months or so. And when I reached out to the business owner, he's like, "Yeah, well it got pushed, and we actually decided that we weren't going to use it, and we were just going to wait until this new feature came into place." And at that point, I ended up going into, me personally, a state of shock, because I had spent all this time working on this project. And my thought process was, I spent all this time working on this project, and it's not going to be used. And it was just, I was speechless, and I really didn't know how to respond to it. And then what I had gotten was the best piece of advice I have probably ever gotten in my career, and it came from my wife. And she's very good with kind of handling of emotions. She's very emotionally mature and has been, which is one of the reasons we got married. But she had said, her favorite phrase is "choose how you feel" in any situation. And she had said, at the end of the day, I was still paid to do the work. And if by the end of that time, the business owners who were funding that project decided not to kind of use the work that I did, then that was on them, because in her mind, that was money they wasted on the project that they could have maybe put towards something else. And once I kind of heard it from that perspective, a light bulb kind of went off. And from that day forward, I have tried to, it was hard at first, but over time, I've been able to detach myself from getting too emotionally invested, because it's just a fact of the world that we work in our field. Over the course of your career, you're going to end up creating many dashboards and work on many projects. And some things, requirements change, and some things just at the end, they will have changed so much to where it's just decided that there's just no use for it anymore. So that's kind of been, those were kind of the two challenges for me as I was going through my progression as well. So if for those of you out there, if you can kind of take those to heart as well, I think those will help you in the long run too. All right. Let's see. What advice, Ojo, would you give to someone considering a transition into the data and analytics space?
This is, thank you for asking this, Scott. I think I'm going to speak a bit on this. First things first, take certifications, learn the basics. I think we touched on it a little bit. SQL, data structure, these are going to be your friends forever as long as you stay in data space. Yes. Learning to document while you build. I know I hate it too, but it's something that you got to do. And who better than Scott? He's nodding his head because he likes this answer so much. And there are reasons for it. If you listen to recordings, you will know. So develop that habit as you build. Like if you're programming for yourself, and when you come back to that, maybe 3 hours later, you remember 50%. If you come back to it a week later, most of it will be gone. So while you build, while you have that light bulb moment, just put comments, build it into a habit. Just keep going with that basic. Best practices, think about a toddler. We teach them how to do something properly. So if you have the luxury of starting today, do it the right way. Certifications definitely help. Learning the basics definitely help. Practice a lot. Now you have Tableau software for free. Make the most of it. You have several community projects. Take benefit from that. When you come across questions, join a community. There's this forum. Ask questions. There are armies of people who are Datafam, and they're waiting to jump on those questions and answer. So take the benefit of that capability in the Tableau community. It's a fantastic group. I can speak about it for hours, but leverage it. So was that everything? Oh yeah. And by all means, don't compare yourself with someone who's been doing this for years together. They'll be faster. Their work will look better. Your journey is yours. It took me a while to figure this out. And sometimes I catch myself thinking about, I don't eat my own dog food sometimes. But you know what? Write it down if you have to. Your journey is yours. And then if you look at all the VOTDs out there, the Viz of the days, if you don't know what I'm talking about, those who know, great. Those who don't know, when you come to know about it, those were done by people who have been doing this for a long time, or they have used some other tools to build the back end, or they really understand it. So if your work is not looking like theirs, but you're still learning, the pace at which you're learning is not important as long as your direction is right. If you're making baby steps and your pace is good for you, you're learning something new, keep at it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything Ojo said, especially on the documentation front. For those of you who have heard me speak, I spoke about this topic at some other tugs earlier this year, and I also did a presentation on documentation at Tableau conference this year. I'm very passionate about it, and I cannot stress enough getting into those habits early on to not only help yourself, but help others who you may be handing your work off to in the future. It's just a great habit to get into. I know it's not a fun thing to do. And it's always been the worst part of any role that I've had, but it can literally save you time and effort later. Especially when you have to go back and reverse engineer something or figure out how a dashboard is working. Because I've literally, before I got into good documentation habits, sometimes I would forget some of the things I did if I had to do enhancements on something 6 months down the road. And even just picking up somebody from something else, even for a basic run-of-the-mill, I guess run-of-the-mill dashboard, sometimes it took me maybe a week or more just of trying to go into the workbook and look at calculations that were embedded in other calculations and things like that, just to figure out just the basic functionality of what was going on. So yeah, I would say definitely get in a habit of documentation. That will definitely help you down the road. We do have a question from Nishu. They're saying, I'm doing basic charting in Tableau for a couple of months. Ojo, what would you suggest for stepping further? Should I go with a course first of advanced topics or jump onto Tableau challenges and learn from there? And they say, thank you for sharing your journey.
Welcome. So this is a good question. I think my learning has plateaued. Yours doesn't have to. If you find that you're being very repetitive, there are a few good resources. Check out the blog by the Flurlich twins. They have good stuff out there. I think there's Tuan Wong, who recently made his content available for free, and he's the master of creating all these bespoke charts. And then there is CJ. Let me do something. After this meeting, I'm going to put this all together in my LinkedIn and send out a blast. I will collate all of these fantastic artists of the craft and share it with you. But if you're able to build line charts, bar charts, and let's not put it out there, but a donut chart with only 2 sections in it. If these 3 things you got done, you probably are 80% there, and everything else I feel is a little bit of a cognitive overload for someone who is breaking into. So think about this: your team, your boss, your audience. How data aware are they? How good are they at reading charts? If you give them a bee swarm chart or a radial chart or a sunburst chart or a chart I don't even know, I don't have the name for it. If you give them, how quickly would they be able to understand the story you are trying to say? So maybe you're doing good enough and doing justice to the craft. But if you want to take it to the next level, there are people out there who are doing it. And I will put it all together and share. Thanks, Nishu, for the question.
What are there any common misconceptions about the field that you think and that you would like to address?
Um, 80% of the work you can achieve, the 80% of the expertise you can achieve in 20% of the effort. If you're following the right leaders, if you're following the right channels, then it's not hard. And we people, especially starting off, we think that this is rocket science. It is not. Tableau is probably an easy tool to learn. It's just been, there are other tools who badmouth Tableau a lot for their vested interest. So don't listen to them.
All right. And then how do you see kind of future outlook here? We'll kind of close out with 2 questions here. First question is, how do you see the field of data and analytics evolving in the next few years?
It's going to change. The way I'm looking at Dreamforce and what was presented there, a lot is changing. So I'm going back to upskilling myself trailblazer. I'm going to hit the learning route. And what have you? Today morning, Kirk, Candy's husband, a good friend of mine, he messaged me and he said, "Oh, Joe, I'm taking certifications and you should too." And I think that's a great advice. Unless we keep up with this learning, the constant learning, things are changing and evolving so fast that our head's going to spin. So let me summarize by saying constant learning, upskilling, that's important. And what's changing? I feel the only way to stay relevant is know the basics and build for your audience.
Okay. And then final question I have for you, sir. What are your long-term career goals within the field?
This was a trick question. I couldn't find a good answer to it. I want to die a Datafam. Let's put it like that. I treasure some of the people I met through the community. I really don't know. I've seen Tableau change a lot, and now I see the pace is even more crazy. So once everything goes to the cloud and Tableau OG goes away, unless I learn, I'd become irrelevant. So this is also a great leveling ground for a lot of us, because those who are starting their careers in Tableau and the data path, if they are probably at par learning the newer things like Pulse, Einstein, and Cloud. So you can differentiate, you can add value rather quickly if you learn this. So my long-term goals, I want to stay in data field for the next 10 years, and I make enough money to retire and never look back.
I wholeheartedly agree. This is a field, selfishly for me, that yeah, I came from a different background as well. Well, a similar but different background. When I graduated from school, it was with a computer degree, but it was more along the lines of coding and web application development. And then I was given the opportunity a year out of school to kind of do this. Fell in love with it, like everybody else who's done it. And yeah, and I've worked with various tools over the course of my career, like yourself. I've worked with OBIEE, and then I transitioned into using Tableau, and just starting with Tableau, just the amount of passion I've had for using the tool is just phenomenal, as well as just the field in general. It's especially the Datafam. They're great people to get to know. I've made a lot of new friends in here, and especially over the last year since I've started to put myself out there more externally. And that's something I will put out as well to everybody is don't be afraid to take a risk and put yourself out there. I'll share this story as well. A year ago, a little over a year ago, I was not doing much externally in the community. I was doing mentoring. I've been doing mentoring now 7 to 8 years or so. But if you looked at my LinkedIn page about a year or so ago, it had stayed flat with about 160 connections for probably the last decade or so. Once I started putting myself more out there and doing more with the Datafam, I have over 1,200 followers now, just in to where my followers have grown over the last year. I do a lot of posting on LinkedIn about stuff I'm passionate about in the community, and having a great time advising people in this user group as well, and helping everybody kind of transition into the data analytics field. And if you would have told me a year ago, from where I started to where I'm at now, I would have never have believed just the journey that I've been on just over the last year. So this is just something I would have never have imagined, and it's been phenomenal for me. It can be for you, but I would have not had this journey if I hadn't put myself out there and taken that risk. And I like the old saying, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So please don't be afraid to put yourself out there, network, start building those relationships. You'll never know what doors they'll open, and some of those networking opportunities and relationships could lead to your next role as well. So just don't be afraid to do that. It's probably the most important thing I can say.
Scott, the
Yeah.
interesting part, the Data Plus TV. Like I mentioned, I went to all the 50 tugs, what have you, right? Why? Because I wanted to get back into this. I had so much ample time between job. When they let me go at the bank, I was upset. It took me a while to figure out that loyalty is something that's it's not flowing as it used to flow 10, 15 years back. The generation of our parents, loyalty was served both ways. But this is the gig culture we live in, right? And nothing wrong about it. I ain't complaining. I'm just adjusting to that. So that job, it was a full-time one after a long, long time at the bank. I got it. I had an injury. I couldn't go to work, and I took a long leave. When I resumed, my senior VP had retired. No one knew why I was there, and my role was sunset. They gave me severance for 3 4 months. I'm not complaining about it, but the opportunity I got, instead of sulking, and I joined Data Careers. I remember, Scott, you were running that, and then Rui was running it, and I said, I need to be with my people, because this is the only thing I know. For the last 10, 15, 10, 12 years, I've been doing Tableau. If I don't do Tableau, what am I even going to do? And I downloaded myself Tableau, and I started attending these tugs, and it helped me immensely. And recently, in the public tug I attended, one of the folks from Salesforce was looking for an anchor for the Data Plus TV. And I volunteered, and lo and behold, I'm going to be one of the 3 hosts, along with Andy Coldgrave and Mark Bradburn and Lisa. So that's like my shot to fame.
Oh, awesome! See, a great example of just how networking and building those relationships can open up doors for you that you never thought would have been there. So appreciate the time, Ojo. Thank you very much. It's been a great conversation. A lot of valuable insights in there. So we've got a little bit of time left. So if anybody else has any questions, we'll go ahead and open it up to you. Go ahead and put it in the Q&A box, and we'll and it could be for you can ask it to Ojo, to any of us leaders here. We're happy to kind of answer those for you if anybody has any additional questions.
Hey, Scott. Hey, Ojo.
Hey, Victor.
Hey, I just want to add something, and also, I'm going to be talking about personal experience, really. And I know there's been like different topics, different questions aimed to your career, Ojo. But based on, I've been, I will say, blessed that I've been, in the same job for like 12, almost 13 years, right? So I haven't really had that opportunity, I guess, to experience that layoff situation where I gotta look for another job. So in that matter, I can really speak about. But I've been reached out by people, and I always put this as an example. And I know, like, we got people connected from different countries, different situations, and everything else. But in my case, for example, I work for a big company, right? It's within the top 25 countries in the U.S. And I've been reached out by like at least like 3 or 4 different people, that I never met before, right? It's via LinkedIn, and say, hey, I seen there's a job posting, in your company, and I don't know if you can, give me a few minutes to chat about the role. And just because of the fact of people reaching out to you in such, polite manner, and seeing that they really are looking forward for this opportunity, they just reach out and ask questions. I'm usually, very open, and start a conversation with these potentially new employees. I had the opportunity to direct 2 of those 4 people that have reached out to me to get an interview. Of course, I don't know them. I got their resumes and everything, and I tell them, what I'm aware of. But at least I have helped, like getting into the first interview, right? After that, it's really up to them. But sometimes if you're in that situation, that I know, like depending on your personality, you might probably don't feel comfortable on reaching out to someone that you don't know. But it's worth a try, right? Like if you get a response from that people, great. If not, okay, I just go to the next, right? Something else that also probably, it's worth mentioning, like depending on the country you are from, I'm foreign, I'm come from South America. And for example, if you go to school for computer sciences, every job that you apply for, they want you to know everything, right? Like it's like you should know everything. You should know coding. You should know database administration. I mean, they want you to know all these different things, right? Like while we in the US, I noticed like we're just focused on certain specific things based on your title, right? If you're a database engineer and you gotta do create pipelines, database administration, creation, and things of that nature, right? So it really also depends where you are coming from, where you live. That's also something like really important to notice when it comes to applying for jobs, right? And those were only my, my 2 cents of information that I want to share.
Oh, thank you, Victor. Appreciate all that. Um, yeah, we love to have the insights from everybody. The more information everybody can get, the better. I do not see that there's any additional questions out there. So we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Like to, again, thank you, Ojo, for taking time out of your busy day to share your story with us. Much appreciated. And we look forward to seeing how your career goes. Frequent poster on LinkedIn. I know I monitor you frequently to all the great content you put out there. So looking forward to that. And thank you, everybody, for attending. And we'll see you next time. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.
You too.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.